What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Bill. This is Steve. He's still out here. We just did the cold air intake from Mishimoto. Now that that's done, we are going to install the rough country winch mount on the front, along with a, was it the Badlands 12,000 pound winch to go along with it. So we're going to get all that installed up on the front, and he'll have some winch capabilities. So first things first, we are going to need to disassemble some of this up here. I know the first time I saw these, I was amazed that these covers are plastic because it matches the rest of the bumper really good. The bumper's steel, and then you have these little plastic covers, which it's hard to believe they're plastic, but they are. And you just have these pins that pull out here, and then there. They just pull out like that, and then this should pop right off of there. So it just pops off, and then do the same thing on the other side. Alright, so the instructions say we have to trim these plastic pieces some. And it goes into details about trimming it, but we're going to go ahead and save that for last. Get everything in place, and that way we can better see what needs to be trimmed while we're doing it. So I got that out and disconnected the main harness that goes into the bumper right here. Now it goes up under, it's kind of behind the valance here underneath the headlight, and kind of hard to get a hold of, so good luck with that. But the connector, you just got to squeeze really hard back under here to get it to release. Now these are also kind of hard to plug back in, and if you don't get it to snap all the way, then you will have sensor errors and you'll be chasing it all over the place. So if you ever disconnect this and plug it back in and you're getting these sensors throwing errors, double check this connector, because more than likely it just wasn't squeezed all the way together. And if it's not perfect, it will give you some errors. So this is saying that we need to remove the bumper since we do have the sensors. And to remove that, it's these 3 bolts on each side, and then the whole thing will come off. It's really that simple. Just make sure that you have the harness disconnected first. That way you're not stuck and trying to balance the bumper or anything and get that disconnected, because like I said, it's not fun. So I believe these are 15 millimeter, and just back these off and we'll be able to get the whole bumper off of there. And ta-da! Bumper removed. Yeah, like I said, much easier as long as you have that disconnected. If you have that connected and you try pulling it off and you realize you need to connect it, it makes your life a lot harder. Okay, so now it wants us to go ahead and remove these 2 brackets from both sides. And these are what actually mount there up here, but it's asking us to remove those, so we'll go ahead and do that. And those are also 15 millimeters. The reason it's having us remove these is just so we can get to the wiring harnesses here. And because what we need to do is remove these sensors right here. We're going to disconnect the harness back here. Easier. Actually, that wasn't too bad. And then it's kind of going to be hard to show this, but there's, along the sensor, there's 2 like plastic clips. You just have to kind of pry those off and the sensor will pull out. And I don't know how well you'll be able to see that, but it's just little plastic clips and then it'll come out. But the little clips just kind of go around and grasp these, and then you just want to be very careful not to scratch these, because then they won't work. And so just need to do the same on the other side, and we'll continue from there. All right, so the directions say once you disconnect the sensors to fish this wire through the sensor holes. Doesn't mention that it's not going to work unless you grab these extensions, which are in the kit, and plug that in. Then you have plenty that you can fish through there. But I started cutting apart one of the wire looms to give it enough space, because I didn't think these were for that, but turns out it is. So yeah, don't start cutting apart your wire harness. You don't need to. Just plug this extension in and then fish that through the hole. We have wires sticking out of the front like so, and then you can put your brackets back in, and then we'll put the bumper back in place. So the whole reason you're taking the bumper off is to take those sensors out and run these cables through, so you can relocate the sensors in the winch mount. All right, so before we put the bumper on, we do have one other thing. We're going to relocate the camera with the DV8 camera relocation kit. So to do that, we're going to have to pull the bumper off. So first thing, you can pull this out. It's just a bunch of those same pins. They're in there.
Or the grill off, because the bumper's already off.
Yeah. What did I say?
The bumper.
The grill off. Yeah, now this pops off nice and easily. Didn't want to when I was trying to get it off earlier. And then there's 4 10mm bolts on top of the grill. Take those off, and then the whole grill will pop off of there. Now, there's also a connector for the camera here and the windshield washer reservoir, which is we're going to be disconnecting and connecting extensions to run, instead of to here, be running out to the front of the winch once it's installed. All right, so to get that, you guys squeeze that to turn it circular, and it'll pop off. And then this, there's just a little pin to push down, and that'll pull off. Then remove the 4 10mm bolts, and then this should just pop right out. Sounds horrible, but swear we're not breaking anything. Hope too bad. And now we need to take this apart to take the camera out of here. And we'll set this down on the blanket too. I don't know what size. I don't have glasses. Pull your camera apart and remove it. I'm assuming we got to pull this all out, but I'll double check the directions. So now just go through and pull these clips up to remove all the camera wiring and the hoses that are run through here. And now there's your camera, and wiring and everything came with it, along with the bugs. Now I'm pretty sure we could just throw the grill back on there, but let's double check. Go ahead and install these wires and run them before we put the grill on. Should be easy enough to fish that down through there. Pull it through like so. And just connect this. So that's how the factory one is, except for that one's a little easier to squeeze than the factory one. And then this has plenty of hose to go with it. This slides on there. I don't think there was any clamps or anything. Let me double check. Maybe you're supposed to change that out to this though. That's with the barbs on there. Instead of using this connector, it wants you to replace it with one of these barbed ones. That way it'll hold onto the hose and won't pull out. Of course, this side's already barbed, so I'm not sure how we're going to get that out of there. Okay. And cut that. Alright, so we've got a camera wire and a hose wire running back behind the light down, and it'll be on top of the bumper when we install the bumper, which is where it needs to go. For now, we can just flip that up after we put the grill back on. So the grill, super simple. Those lines right back up. And voila, we gotta put the bolts back in there. All right, we're gonna go ahead and lift this into place. We gotta go in. Oops. There we go. Let's get the outside bolt started. Same over here. Where's this stick on? There we go. All right. All right. Do we look to be lined up with the original marks, but does that look good side to side?
It's hard to tell at this angle, but
yeah,
it looks pretty good from here.
To the tire. Yeah, I think as long as we use the same line, alignment holes, or the same marks. There, good go. Now, I'll make sure everything looks lined up. I'm not used to seeing that gap there. I'm so used to working on your bumper where it's like right up to it. I'm like, wait, that doesn't look right. There's a gap there, but. All right, so we got the fair lead on there. He's got the steel cable, so it does have the rollers instead of the aluminum fair lead. So got that installed. The next is the sensors. It's these plates. Install this plastic piece in there, and it's got a little screw. Then we have these little things. It says to remove the rubber from the plastic and stick the foam on there, and then locate the locking plate and foam from the sensor mounting kit. So this, install the foam onto the locking plate. And then there's two of them. And do our other sensor. And if you don't have sensors, it's got these little block off plates that'll go in the sensor holes to fill them up. Alright, so we got our sensors with the foam, we got our locking inserts. Okay, it's got the beveled edge and it lines up. Except for I did this one backwards, so I'm going to have to flip that around so it fits in there like so and lines up. But let's just little plastic screw, so we can flip that around, insert it, and tighten it back down. And so, and then we should have 4 screws, washers, and nuts to install those on both sides, and that'll be ready. Alright, so that's going to go in there like so, and then these are, it just locks in there and holds them in place. Now the instructions say to sand the corners of these down. I guess we'll set the winch in there and see if it interferes and hits. If it does, then we'll have to sand those back. But now I see why it says to have the wires connected, because that's pretty tight on there. Alright, so those are connected. Yeah, it says sand the corners off of those, but we'll see if our winch is hitting that or not. It shows why sanding is necessary. Install hardware. Now this is saying go ahead and install the winch onto the plate here and then install everything. I guess we'll follow their directions and we will get the winch out and install this plate onto the back of the winch. And we'll see if that yeah, that's going to be a pain. Alright, so small situation here. We put these extensions on here because the plugs did not feed through like it said it was supposed to. So we're like, oh, I don't know why I didn't say go ahead and install these to feed them out. But now that we're at this step, it makes sense because you're supposed to go ahead and connect them here, feed them down, and then install the winch on here, which is not going to happen because they're already connected and on the inside of the winch, or on the inside of the bumper there. So we're going to skip ahead and go ahead and assemble this, put this all on there, and then try to put the winch on after. And hopefully that works, because I looked through the instructions. I don't see why it wouldn't. We still have access to the bolts and everything for the winch. So it should work. So we'll go ahead, flip this over. And then this is going to mount to the bottom like so. I assume some of these bolts, which does it say? Helps if you look at the instructions right side up. Install the winch mount to the winch tray. Using provided hardware. Boom, boom, boom. Doesn't say. This has big bolts. I assume it's these. I got these big bolts going through. So, and then we'll have these large nuts go onto the back side. Two of those nuts, two similar nuts on the back side of those. Were they not supposed to go on the back side of that? And now this is going to be light. Yeah, okay, so what nuts was I supposed to use on that? So apparently we used the wrong nuts, bolts and nuts for this. Should have used the ones that came with the winch, not the ones that came with the winch kit. You shut your mouth. That's why I kicked you out of here before. Alright, so we got this. And then these bolts. Nope, not that bolt. These bolts. And these. That's what we're supposed to use for the Alright, now we gotta tighten these down, which we'll need a wrench because they're not going to be able to get a socket on there. Not a problem, I believe. Or no, it stays out.
Yep.
Goes in if you're not installing a light, but if you are installing a light, then install the light. And we are installing a light. So we've got, even comes with a nice little cover, which I guess you won't ever get to use.
Nope.
You're not going to be able to. Nice little cover there. Is there a, guess it doesn't matter. Make sure there's not a upside or a downside.
Well, done.
Beautiful. Kind of right there. And because I need to put this bolt in, but then put the spacer behind the bolt. So I need to come out real quick. Then you do the same on this side. Bolt. All right, but now I gotta pull it out away. There we go. I don't think that's... All right, so we are back to step one, where it said to feed this plug through. We got it. It pulled really tight, and it was working, but then we realized that pulled the pin out on that side, so I had to repin the extension. And now I'm just going to go ahead and cut this wire loom back a little bit so we can extend this, and we'll go ahead and feed these plugs through like it said to do originally, and then go back from there. So yeah, I would go ahead and do this from the beginning instead of trying to add the extensions on and doing it that way, because that caused problems. So yeah, just trimming this back a little bit, it gives us some room that we can have some extra wire. All right, so running the wires there gave us plenty of extra cable here to get that plugged in, get everything out of the way. So now the instructions do say we're going to have to sand that back, but we're going to set the winch in there and see and go from there. But these nuts get installed in the bottom of the winch. And this thing is not light. That they just slide in like so, and then hopefully they don't fall out. I'm going to grab that side. Yep.
Sandy.
And yes, it looks like
Well, maybe not.
It depends on where those bolt holes line up. Yeah, it's got to come forward a good half an inch, it looks like, maybe. Alright, so after we took everything back apart and put it back together, these plugs back here that had the caps on them were way back here. We ended up having to cut those off and just putting the foam back there, and the foam is pushing up against there, which seems to be perfect. So slight adjustment there, but everything else is in. We got the bottom bolts in. We had to take the light back down so we could get the bottom bolts in, and we had to loosen this to get the bolt to be able to reach up underneath and get those, but everything's in and tight. So now we just got to run the wiring for the lighting and for the winch, and this should be all done, and then do the front camera relocation, figure out how that's supposed to go, and we should be good to go. All right, so we kind of skipped ahead here in the video. We just went ahead and got everything buttoned up. So this is the DV8 camera relocation bracket. I think that'll be available on the site. Rough Country stuff is not available on the site because they won't work with me unless I have a brick and mortar building. So nothing from Rough Country available on the site, but anything else is. But yeah, we got that installed. It put up a bit of a fight, but Matt persevered and got that installed. We got wiring all routed underneath, wiring for the winch routed, and this light has backlighting. So there's 3 wires. There's red wire, which is power, which we did to upfitter switch 1, which is the high beam, and then it does have backlighting, which is on switch 2, which is kind of like ambient lighting, well, backlighting, so it looks cool, but it's not blinding everybody. But yeah, overall, it's all installed. Everything's on there. It looks good. I know you were worried about, not sure if it was going to work with that bull bar or not, but it does. Winch fits in there perfectly. And yeah. So the only thing outstanding is these trim pieces. We do need to cut those and put them back on. The instructions aren't super clear, and we've been at this all day, and we'd rather make sure we're going to do it right and before we start cutting anything, so we're going to leave that for another day. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for the Rough Country winch plate stall. Thanks, Steve, for coming out. Thanks, Matt, for helping out, and hopefully it serves you well.
Absolutely.
All right, so thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the thumbs up button. If you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.